I'm Jenifer Simpson. I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs at the American Association of People with Disabilities. I also co-chair the Coalition of Organizations for Accessible Technology, the disability coalition that spearheaded the advocacy work for the legislation that we were just talking about. I think broadband will really help empower people with disabilities in brand new ways. And we're not just talking about regular old wireline broadband, but we're also mobile broadband. Because it allows all kinds of applications to be developed that help people with disabilities. I mean, we already know one of the major uses of broadband in our community is video relay services for people who are sign language users. They can use broadband for that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the beginning of it. We know that down the road there's going to be even more stuff to make life better for every single person with disability. I have a son with disabilities. He has intellectual disabilities. And when there's broadband, things download faster, the pictures come faster. So he doesn't get so frustrated. And just that alone means broadband is better for him. The new legislation is comprehensive in nature, and for that reason it benefits a lot of people with a lot of different disabilities, and that's one of the reasons why AAPD supported it. For instance, it ensures that there's going to be accessible browsers on mobile phones. I mean, our community of people who are blind and low vision is really going to benefit from that. It ensures that smartphones have to be hearing aid compatible. So no longer can a phone, make that horrible whizzing, horrible noise in someone's ear when it doesn't work with their hearing aid if it's an internet-enabled phone. Really big for people who are blind and others who benefit from it is video description, which is the description of the action going on, so that somebody watching, like CSI, and now the guy's walking down the corridor with the axe, the voice will come in and say that, so they'll know who done it. I mean, that's something that television hasn't had in terms of accessibility for blind people. For people who are deaf and hard of hearing, there's a lot of other things in there. For instance, internet captioning. Up to now, television has been required to be captioned, but once that TV moves through the internet and gets redistributed, reshown, mysteriously the captions disappear. So this legislation will ensure a process is in place to make sure that captioning, once it's captioned and it moves to the internet, the captioning will still be there, which will benefit millions and millions and millions of people with disabilities. Also, there is a requirement for advanced communication services to be accessible to anyone with any disability, and that means it could be intellectual disability, could be vision, could be hearing, could be anything, could be physical disability. And advanced communications includes things like text messaging, video conferencing, a couple other things, but basically it's across disability. So that's just like 3/4 of what this legislation does. There's other bits and pieces in there. There's $10 million a year for the deaf-blind community so they can get the equipment to access to even get onto the internet in the first place. The role of the Coalition of Organizations for Accessible Technology, or COAT, was absolutely crucial and significant in getting this legislation. I co-founded COAT with my colleague Karen Pell-Strauss back in it was 2007. We basically put out an email to half a dozen disability groups and we said, look, we really need to do something about this. People with disabilities are getting left behind, left out with the new communications technologies. Let's see if we can get together and do something. So within a week, we had 30 organizations join us. Within a year, we had like 200, and I can tell you now, what are we, 4 years later, 5 years later, we have over 310 organizations who are members of the Coalition of Organizations for Accessible Technology. Why we were able to organize so well, I think, is we had a very clear shopping list of what we needed to have happen. Some of those things I've already mentioned, like captioning on the internet, video description for people who are blind, money set aside for deaf-blind, accessible browsers. I mean, anything that allows connection to the internet and allows for accessibility is the kind of thing that we wanted to be working on. So we also used the new electronic social media to reach our community. I'm a big Twitterer. I have 2 tweets. I also run 2 blogs, actually 3 blogs, and we use obviously standard things like email, and we also use the phone too, the plain old voice telephone as well. So we used whatever means were out there, including broadband technologies, in order to reach our communities, in order to get this legislation moving, and I think we succeeded very well. Working with industry has been a significant part of getting this legislation. Right from the start, we sat down and we met with representatives from the different industries that were involved. And we're talking about a significant range of different industries. We're talking about the IT industry, the wireless industry, the wireline industry, the device manufacturers, the TV industry, that's cable, satellite, and regular broadcast. So we basically had to sit down and think through and ask with them all the things that we wanted the legislation to do. And in most cases, they sat down willingly with us, sometimes a little pushing, sometimes it required the representative or the senator to say, make sure you meet with, something like that. But basically, once the industry realized that this was good stuff, we weren't going away. People with disabilities are a significant population, and an increasing number of people in America are disabled because America is aging. People started to realize that this was a good thing, and industry got on board, and some industry obviously clearly leapt ahead. You know, companies like AT&T, Verizon, US Telecom, Windstream, Time Warner Cable, and Comcast, they all sort of came in at some point, and we sat and talked to them. They realized that, you know, they needed to do something, and they started looking at what the consumer experiences were with these technologies and realized that, you know, we actually had some very significant things we were asking for that needed to have happen.